Today I wanted to show you two things on my Pro Angler that I hadn't seen anybody else do on their boats. The first thing I wanted to show you is the Anchor Wizard. Probably if you're watching this video, you know what an Anchor Wizard is. It's just a winch that you can mount on the boat that allows you to lift and drop your anchor without having to actually handle the rope. Some guys don't mind using the rope, you know, they don't mind hauling it in manually, and that's fine. But for me, I found I was always getting entangled, or you know, around my feet, or if I tried to stow it in the trunk area of the boat, it would get wrapped around other stuff that was in there, bungee cords, whatnot. So I wanted something that was a little bit less prone to goofing up, because I found I was floating past the spots I wanted to stop a lot when, you know, I was trying to wrestle my anchor out of whatever I tangled it up with. So anyway, most of the time when you see an Anchor Wizard put on somebody's boat, it's usually used with in conjunction with a gear track. And most of the time those gear tracks are built into the boats, or in some cases they're mounted to the boats afterwards, but there's really nowhere on the Pro Angler 12 to mount the winch if you're going to deploy your anchor from the back like I've got it here. I've seen guys mount this on the mounting boards for the, you know, up here, and then deploy their anchor off the front, and I suppose that would work. I didn't want to do it that way because I wanted my anchor off the back. So this is how I did it, and I think it works pretty well. The way this works, if you don't already know, is when you loosen the Anchor Wizard a half a turn or a turn, it drops, the weight of the anchor typically pulls it off the back of the boat, and you drop the anchor. When you get to where you're going, you just go ahead and give it another turn, and that basically locks the rope in place. You're done and you want to move, you just crank it up and haul it back in. And it's a pretty good system. It works with standard anchors. I've just got a regular 3-pound folding anchor that I think I bought from Seattle Sports through Amazon, $30 or whatever. It's just a regular anchor. When you buy the Anchor Wizard, you get the Anchor Wizard. It comes with 60 feet of paracord, and it comes with a little clip on the end so that you can hook it to your anchor. The Anchor Wizard does not come with an anchor, so you can use whatever anchor you got, but you will need an anchor if you buy it. It includes the winch, and it includes this piece right here, the back part, which you know, you also have to mount on your boat. And, so it comes with this piece right here. You can see in this installation, I've mounted this rear piece with a piece of gear track that I just screwed to the boat. And then it comes with, like the Anchor Wizard itself, comes with some T-nuts to mount this to a gear track. Or you could screw it directly onto the boat if that's what you want to do. I want to make it removable. And the only modifications that I've made to the boat to mount the system are the screw holes for this piece of gear track. Everything else comes off completely. So anyway, the main problem that I had with the previous way I mounted this, which was just using a system to attach it directly to this rail, was that this was flexing a lot and turning on the rail. As you can just see when I screwed that up there right there, everything was nice and solid. This didn't move, but in the first attempt where I just mounted it without this bar here, everything was pretty flexible. The boat would flex, this bar would move back and forth. I could see it trying to turn in here. I just felt that over time it was going to cause problems, and I wanted it more solid. Problem is, where are you going to mount it on this boat? The only flat spot that you could mount it and still reach it would be down in here, but first that would screw up your rod storage if you use it this way. And second, down here, I don't think you got enough area to work this crank comfortably. And then finally, I really just didn't want to drill holes in the hull down here because working this crank back and forth, if you've got screws drilled through the hull, even if you've got backing nuts on the back of them, I don't think that's going to be good for the hull. I've seen other kayaks with this mounted on it, where they've got kayaks that have got gear track mounted to the hull from the factory, and even then, this thing, when people start cranking it, there's some give to it. The hull flexes where it mounts, and apparently it doesn't cause any problems, but I just didn't like it. Anyway, as you can see here, I have got this Anchor Wizard mounted on a plate. Now, this is an aluminum piece of aluminum I had. It's about 4 inches by 8 inches. And the blocks that I've got it mounted to that go around the rail, these blocks are made by Yak Attack, and they are made specifically to allow you to mount a piece of gear track like this on these blocks. The idea being, if you have a block here and a block here, and imagine this plate not in the way, with those two blocks, then you could take a piece of gear track, lay it across the top, and screw down into the top of the two blocks, or 3 if you wanted more, however many. But I set it up that way originally, and then I mounted the Anchor Wizard to that gear track, but I felt that it was not solid. I could, no matter how tight you tighten these blocks down, it never got to the point where it wouldn't turn on this rail if you weren't paying attention. If you just started cranking, it would give. This thing would turn, the whole thing would flex. I just thought it was kind of ugly. So then I mounted this aluminum plate to these blocks instead of the gear track, and that made things a little more solid, but I still had the turning or pivoting around the rail thing, and I knew I needed something else to stabilize it. So I also had this piece of aluminum sitting around, and this is 1-inch square aluminum tubing. I think it's a 16th inch wall thickness. It's just basic aluminum tubing that you could buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. I had a 4-foot chunk of this laying here, so what I did at first was I screwed it to the bottom of this plate. You can't see it here, but underneath here there's screws that go through this tube and into the plate. And that gives me a big lever arm that basically tightens up the whole assembly so it can't move this way. And it lays all the way across the other rail on the other side where it's fastened to that rail. Now, when I first put this on here, the only reason I put this bar on here was to tighten up the Anchor Wizard, and it worked like $1,000,000. It made everything very solid. Of course, the 2 pieces of aluminum together weigh perhaps a pound, not very much. They're not in the way of anything. I can still put my cart in here. My seat still reclines like it's supposed to. It goes up and down. It doesn't hit this bar. It works great. The only drawback to having this bar in place is if you use the built-in rod storage for your fishing poles, and your fishing poles are longer than 7 feet, this bar might cause you a problem. All my fishing poles are 7-foot rods or less, and I can put all of them in here, and the end of the rod will clear this bar by about 1.5 inches or 2 inches. But if the rods were 7/6, you wouldn't be able to shove them far enough forward to miss this bar. So that is something to think about if you use your onboard rod storage for fishing rods that are longer than 7 feet. So once I got this system all in and working, and I was really happy with how it worked, then I thought of some other use I could use. Now that I had this bar in place, I thought of another use for it, and that's the other thing I wanted to show you. So let me move my camera to that side, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So later on I'll take this apart and I'll show you the individual pieces and how they're attached to one another. I'll maybe do that in another video, so that if somebody wanted some more details, they can look at that. this gives you the general idea, and if you're handy, you could probably figure out the rest of it. But I'll try and take this all apart and give you a detailed breakdown of the whole thing. But for right now, the keys to remember what's going on here is this aluminum bar. This is a stainless steel U-bolt that I got at Lowe's. I think the inside diameter, the inside dimension is 1.25 inches, which just barely fits over this bar. In fact, it fit a little bit tight. I had to take the Dremel tool and hog that out just a little bit so that it would fit over here a little bit better. What's happening here is this bar comes along here, and I've using a Dremel tool or a Fordham tool or however you want to do it. I've basically rounded the bottom of this aluminum channel so that it would lay over the top of this bar, basically just matching the curve to it. But before I did that, I filled the end of this tube with a block of hard nylon that I sanded a chunk out that was a little less than an inch tall and an inch thick and about 3 inches long. And when I got it to the right size, I slid it into the tube this way, and it comes back to about here. And this bolt right here just fastens the two of them together. And the reason that I did that was because, as you can see from the side here, this piece of aluminum gets pretty thin up around here. And without that plastic block in there, it's not terribly strong. If you somehow or other fell or put your weight against the bar, I figured you could bend this part here. So the plastic is just in there as a reinforcement. And then, of course, when I got it all in there, that's when I started to cut this shape out. And I actually cut the plastic a little less than I cut the aluminum, so that as it's resting on this bar, it's actually the plastic block that's resting on the aluminum and not the aluminum of this channel itself. And that's just to keep it from scratching it too much. This does not have to be very tight here. The main reason for this bar is to just fasten it down so that it can't go up or down, and thereby makes that whole assembly over there, it prevents it from twisting and rocking. Okay, that's the only reason for this bar. So really, it doesn't take very much pressure to hold this down here. You could actually hold it down with zip ties. I just don't think it would be, it wouldn't look very permanent. These particular zip ties right here are to keep this paddle holder from twisting. They have nothing to do with this bar itself. They're just there for this. All right, so as you might already have noticed, there's another thing mounted to that bar right here. Okay, and if you look at it from this side, you can get a little bit better view of it. Okay, this is a piece I made, and it's made out of stuff called Kydex. Kydex is a plastic. When you get it hot to 300, I think it's 325 degrees, it gets really soft. And it's just like, it's not like paper, it's not that flexible, but the point is it's flexible and it'll take a shape and it'll hold a shape. So you get it up to 325 degrees I used a heat gun. A lot of guys, when they're building stuff out of this, they'll heat the sheets in their oven. And then we'll take them out and form them to whatever they want to form before it cools. I did this with a heat gun. And I mounted the bar in a vise. And I started with a 8x8 sheet of this plastic, got it hot, wrapped it around a pipe that was about the same diameter as my paddle, and got it all to where it was, clamped up here. And then, I'm keeping it hot the whole time. And then once I got it all done, took the heat away. And when this stuff cools below 325 degrees, it stays in whatever shape it's in when you took the heat away. So what, you say, what's that there for? Okay, well, this is this is designed to accommodate my paddle coming in from here. Okay. One of the things about a pro angler that you may or may not know is that when you buy a pro angler, they give you a paddle that comes apart, and it splits in half, and you have a handle that you can use. This is the paddle. You can see the handle there. And most of the guys that I know that have pro anglers, they don't even take the whole paddle with them. They just take the half with this handle. That's how I do it, and it works pretty good. But the problem is that I've always been a little concerned about the idea of getting back on the kayak if I fall off of it. What a lot of the experienced guys tell me is that with a pro angler, it's pretty easy to get on the back of the kayak, to get on from the back. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, normally I've got my crate. I'm going to have my crate here. I'm going to have my cart here. I'm going to have my seat in place because all this stuff is attached to the kayak. So even if the kayak turns over, it's still going to be there when I get it back upright, and I got to climb on. And I don't know how easy it would be to climb over all of this stuff to get back into the seat so that I could sit down. I have always wanted to figure out how to get on the thing from the side. Now, it's wintertime right now. It's pretty cold, and I haven't had a chance to test any of this stuff out. But I have seen a lot of videos on the web of guys using paddle floats, and to me it looks like that's probably my best option. The only problem is if all you're carrying around is this paddle, there's no way to use a paddle float. And that's what I built this for. This is so that I can use my short stubby paddle and my paddle float and still use it even though, I can't get it all the way across the kayak. So I'll show you how that works right now. So the cart's in there with the little doohickey turn so it can't fall out. The black pack is strapped to the kayak. The seat's attached with its bungee. If everything is going normally, my paddle is right there, and I fall out of the boat. So I'm wearing my PFD now, obviously, because I don't know how to swim, so I wear my PFD every second I'm in the kayak. But I'm out of the boat now, and I'm in 6, 8, 10 feet of water. What do I do? All right, well, sure, I could probably go and try to get back on from the back of the kayak, but like I said, I got all of this crap to climb over, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to do that. One of the reasons why is chances are I fell out of the kayak because maybe the water's rough or something like that. Well, if the water's that rough, how am I gonna stand up and get over all of this stuff and get back into the front? Now, yeah, you could probably crawl over everything. It still looks awkward to me, and I still think that the best bet is to get on from the side. So here's my plan. I'm in the water now. I'm bobbing up and down. Hopefully, I come up to this side of the kayak, and I pick this side because I don't have anything mounted up here that I can't get out of the way. On the other side, I got my fish finder. I don't want to have to deal with moving that out of the way or trying to climb around it or climb over it. So I'm on this side. I got my kayak or my paddle. I take my handle out and stick it in my little pocket here, which I'm sure all of this is going to be easier said than done when I'm out there in the water. And I take my paddle float and I pull it out, and I stick my paddle in the paddle float, and I cinch the paddle float down. All right, the whole purpose of this plastic part that I showed you earlier is so that I can do this. All right, the paddle goes into that, to the end of it, when it was hot, I folded the ends in so the paddle can't go any farther in than the very end of that tube. So it's got about 8 inches where it's held in there. That's basically holding that into the paddle, and the rail of the kayak acts as your fulcrum. So now I've got a pontoon sticking out here about 2.5 feet. And if you have ever watched the videos where guys use their paddle floats, they're using a full-length paddle, which they slide across the kayak and they intertwine it with some bungee cords, or they run it underneath the rail, similar to what I got done here. But the idea is they use their full-length kayak paddle, but half of it is sticking out the other side of the boat. So what they wind up with is about the same length as what I've got right here. And this paddle float, this paddle and float is pretty sturdy. If you watch here, I can lift the whole boat and nothing moves at all. There's no give in here. Okay, this is all nice and sturdy. I mean, yeah, it flexes. The whole boat's probably going to flex a little, but it's going to do that with any type of paddle float, right? It's no different because I'm using a short paddle here. The beauty of this system is I can use it quickly. Certainly you could probably use it with the inflatable type paddle floats, but to me I thought it was more practical to get this particular type because it fits so nicely in this area between my carriage and the back of this bar. So anyway, I've got my paddle float in there. Now I can climb onto the kayak from the most convenient spot, hopefully, get back in, and once I'm back in, I just got to reach around and pull it out. And I haven't had a chance to test it yet, so maybe this won't work at all, but it seems like a pretty good plan. And as soon as the weather gets nice, I plan to go out and actually try it, make sure that I can do it. I just didn't get an opportunity to try any of this before the weather turned bad. So those are the two ideas that I had and built onto my kayak. I don't know if they will help anybody, but I sure hope they do. And if anybody wants some more details about how I made any of these things or where I got the stuff, like this Kydex, I got it online. But if somebody needs some help figuring some of this out or working out the details, I will be happy to share all of the information that I have on it and all of my ideas. And so I hope this helps somebody, and I hope you all have a really great day.